I'm joined right now by Luke Hanson, who has written an article along with Tommy Stevenson on their blog called BYU-Chronicle.org. You can find it there. There is some very interesting information here that I've not seen anywhere else that has to do with the internal sourcing of information on what appears to be more and more a hoax, a racial hoax, almost like a racial Me Too event here that has happened. Luke, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Glad to be on.
This is really intriguing. You've got some internal sources here within the athletic department, and you're privy to several other statements that may have happened here within BYU itself as they're trying to swim here with the sharks and swim through all of this. What have you found? What have your sources told you? And what do you surmise at this point, being the Wednesday afternoon here, or the 31st of August? What do you surmise so far of what has really happened last weekend at the BYU women's volleyball game?
Yeah, as far as what really happened, I don't think anybody will be able to say whether something was yelled or not yelled, but it's very interesting that everybody has been scouring all the tapes and stuff for, since Friday. So what are we on, day 5 now? Nothing has come forward. And then also the fact that there seems to be a very politically motivated reason for the godmother of this player to be putting all this stuff out there. And she actually claimed credit for making this a national story. And I don't know if you're going to talk about or have seen her tweets that she's made, that she has extremely racist tweets, not from a long time ago, not one or two, but dozens, going from 2019 all the way up to
Well, it looks
today.
Like she's shut down the Twitter account, though, to get rid of a lot of those.
Yeah. So you have motivation, you have means, and you have the opportunity to do something like this. And
I think about that, and I think, well, why does Miss Richardson here get involved with that? Is she motivated by her godmother? Or
she definitely, during the game, made a complaint. That is basically settled now. During the second set, at least made a complaint, and then at the end made a complaint. But it was the godmother that came out with the version of the story that everybody's currently passing around, that every single time she served the ball, the N-word was yelled at her and everybody heard it. And then the player's father also added on that it was more than one person. And this is a story that everybody's passing around. They made those statements before she came out and made her official statement of her version of the story on Twitter.
In her version, though, she seems to come out and corroborate their story.
Yeah, she doesn't specifically say the N-word, but she did say harassed and called racial slurs throughout the entirety of the game. So I don't know if she believes she heard something or she made it up from the beginning, but I wouldn't be surprised if she's under pressure to corroborate what family members of hers had already said.
Do we know what the exact complaint was that she made during the match?
No, and every time she's made comments to the media and in her official statements, she's always just used the term racial slurs. I don't think she's ever specifically said what the slur was. It was the godmother that said it was the N-word.
Okay, interesting. Now, you're privy to some other additional information, perhaps, in the internal works of BYU. What else have you found out there?
Yeah, so kind of the impetus for our article was, well, first let me back up. When we saw that BYU put out a statement basically condemning this thing that apparently happened, and then saying that they banned someone, Tommy and I, who run both the BYU Conservatives Instagram page and the Cougar Chronicles, said this must have happened.
You're both students, by the way, at BYU, right? You're both students at BYU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we said, let's put out a statement because a lot of people like the Black Menaces, that group at BYU, were saying, this is why we need this training, this DEI training on campus. So we wanted to put something out that said, we completely disagree with this and people should have responded to this person who is saying these things during the game, but the right way to respond is not to call for these trainings. That's more divisive. That was our original statement. When we put that out, somebody reached out to us and said, hey, I'm in the athletic department. There's more to the story that people don't know, and then sent us messages from people that work directly with the volleyball team and were there that night that came out with this different narrative that we have in our story. But essentially they knew from the beginning that the volleyball people knew from the beginning that there wasn't any evidence for the claim that was made.
So the volleyball people knew. When you say people, the coaches and are you saying the athletic department?
Yeah, I can't say because of confidentiality
Yeah.
who specifically it is that we have these messages from, but they are people very part of the BYU athletic department that were there that night and work with the volleyball team closely.
Okay, so if they don't have the information, then the athletic department doesn't have the information, and
yeah,
so the reaction that is made off of simply the statements of the godmother, the father, and Miss Richardson.
Yeah.
Without any corroborated evidence whatsoever. I mean, like you said, we're on the fifth day. Here's what I think. You have with these things that pop up, and we see this happen so many different times, right? You've got the mattress girl, you've got the Rolling Stone, University of Virginia article that went out.
We have Duke.
You've got Duke again here in the lacrosse team in 2005. You've got so many of these stories pop up, and then they kind of disappear. Jussie Smollett, et cetera. And it's like, don't we learn how to react to these things and say, let's get to the bottom of this before we self-inflict a position of guilt? Because when you do that, you're not just speaking for the administration of BYU, right? When you bring this on, you're speaking for every student at BYU and throwing around a yoke of racism on every student at BYU when you approach it this way. It's very difficult for me to understand why you can't step back for a little second and say, this is horrible. If this is what happened, we will get to the bottom of this, instead of automatically making an apology, basically, that is nothing more to me than an admission of guilt.
Yeah, and I thought I had my proper skeptic glasses on at the time when I heard about it at first. I was like, okay, maybe not. But when I saw that BYU put out a statement, I was convinced. I was taking it that this must have happened. Let's put out a statement about it. So needless to say, I feel fairly betrayed by BYU at this point.
Yeah. And I love Tom Holmoe. I love what he's done there. I think he's a great representative of the school. I just wish he would have qualified his words, at that night, and just qualified it and said,
and you're talking about the night after,
right? Where he presented and said, this is not acceptable. He said some really good things. We're all children of God, and this is unacceptable. But some type of a statement that says, we don't know yet what has happened here. And when we do, because basically he sat down with Ms. Richardson and listened to her story, but we have nothing else around it. There's nothing. Usually where there's smoke, there's fire. Well, where's the fire? I see a whole bunch of smoke. We're all coughing on it, but where's the fire on this thing?
And I'm fine with the BYU athletic department wanting to cover their bases and wait for a while before stuff came out. But based on his comments, and I don't have anything personally against Tom Holmoe, but the way his comments that second night came off to me as was this tactic that people say is like, oh, come on, guys, you call yourselves Christian, but you let this happen. He kind of took that route the way I understood it. But like, I know from the messages, the private messages that we've reviewed, the volleyball people, they were up till midnight that night. They immediately went back to the tapes, were asking around, looking at where this happened, and couldn't find any evidence. And so he's almost 24 hours coming out there knowing that they've been searching and can't find anything. And he still just assumes it happens and kind of berates the BYU people for A, letting it happen, and then B, not ratting out the person that did it.
Yeah. And, there's two things that you've got to look at when you do this. Number one, it is, okay, well, we've got the name of BYU. And of course, being that it's a church-sponsored school, it's the church. And so you want to save face as much as you can in the limited light of the events that were portrayed in the narrative that is put out there. But that's not all it is. Again, that's not all you have there. You can't just look at the institutional level without looking at the people involved with this and people that are associated with the BYU. All of the BYU alumni, all the students, all that are associated with BYU are thrown, again, this yoke of racism around them that are associated with it. And you've got, LDS scholars putting in there how ashamed they are of their alma mater, and all these things going on. It's just it stinks. I'll be honest. The hoax stinks. It's fishy, but the response stinks without any qualifying measures to put on there in trying to say, let's see. I mean, we believe so much in the church in truth, right? We want truth. Let's find the truth. If we could do that first, that would be very refreshing to me. You had some other comments. You said there's anything else that you kind of get a feel for as far as what's happening now with this situation and what may have happened and what's happened in between?
Yeah, so what stood out to me at the beginning, because we get this text from this person, or these messages from this person who we called Connor in the article, and they send us messages that they had with other people. But so we go out and try to find people actually there who didn't hear anything or did hear anything in the student section. And as we're going around asking all these people that we knew, there is so much fear. Like, we had lawyers telling people, don't put your name out there. We had parents saying, I don't want my daughter's name out there. We had coaches telling people under them, hey, don't actually make that statement, and I don't want the name of this organization to be part of that article. So we had to really scramble. We were talking to people all day, and managed to get one person that said, yeah, I'll put my name on it. Another person that said, yes, if somebody else does. And by the way, this is just to say I was there and didn't hear anything. That's the only statement that they're making. And then got another people who agreed to be on anonymously, and then the source that didn't want to be named, giving us the information in the first place. And that's what we were able to put together. And even after this came out, there's been a number of people that, hey, so-and-so supports you, but they're not going to go out publicly with that. Or, hey, I have this more information, but don't say my name or anything. And
trust me, I get this all the time with the work I do at BYU. The whole thing, I'm not going to put my name out there. I feel silenced. I can't say anything what's happening with all of the woke culture that's building at BYU. But I'm with you, Greg, but I can't say anything on this. And, look, I understand it's your job and it's you've got a family to support and these other things. But we need a little more backbone in these types of situations. And based on this situation, it's not just faculty or others. It's all the way to the top. Right. You've got to have a little bit more backbone and think about people as individuals. Think about all the people involved that Y represents, and not just the face of BYU and the church, but who that represents, anyway, I get riled up with this kind of thing because I see it so often, and it's so. I see, you have this reaction that comes about from, a spectrum of people that are involved with BYU or that are members of the church, and they see this. And you have the spectrum is everything from C, BYU is racist. C, everything we're saying about BYU and racism and the backwardsness of this religious institution is true. And of course, it's looking like it's not, right? Not based on this. And it's a two-edged sword. If you're going to say all those things and then it's not true, then the opposite must be, based on the way you're reacting, must be true. It's not a racist institution. But the thing that gets thrown on here is the systemic racism. Because if there's somebody there heckling for 2 hours, and nobody says anything, that's the one piece that I could not believe. I would not believe that all of these people around this person who is throwing out the N-word and heckling this girl for 2 hours wouldn't say something or call security or do anything about it. I don't believe that for a second. And yet, a lot of people out there on social media were happy to throw that yoke of racism around all of BYU and the students. See, look at BYU. They wouldn't even do anything. And in fact, Ms. Richardson, I think she said, she goes right into Ibram Kendi and starts talking about anti-racism. And if you don't say something, then you're racist, right? Then you are racist. It's not just a matter of saying you're not racist. If you're just going to be quiet, then you're racist. And then everybody jumps on that, and we get this idea of systemic racism everywhere. honestly, it's infuriating. It really is infuriating. And I'm not saying nothing happened. What do you know about the man, by the way? What do you know about the man that is banned from all sports venues and events now?
Mm-hmm. So the private messages that we looked at, we had two different people saying that they heard it was a mentally challenged person. And you'd have to watch a video of the game to understand what might be going on here. But what that night, at least, BYU was wearing a black and blue uniform, and Duke was wearing a white and blue uniform. So even me kind of reviewing this game, I got who was who mixed up.
Confused.
So apparently after the game, this young man, who the Deseret News actually just came out with an article like this afternoon, recording this on Wednesday, this afternoon, from a police report saying he was a UVU student. And so he goes up to somebody who he apparently thought was his friend or somebody that he knew on the BYU team, but it was actually the Duke team, gets in their face a little bit, and then is told that he is banned because of that. So once he approaches Duke, Duke says, oh, hey, we recognize him. We don't recognize his face because nobody saw this person we're making these allegations about, but we recognize his voice. And so BYU just immediately bans that person for that confrontation. But then when they put out their press release, they kind of crafted, if you go back and look at it, they crafted it to look like they said, we banned the person that was yelling these things. But then when you actually read the statement again, they said, someone was yelling these things and we banned a person. Mm-hmm. But they made it look like they got the guy, which lended, at least for me, a lot of credibility to the story and is what made me believe it at first.
I'm reading here something that came out today. Also, I don't know if this is the one you're talking about here, from Tad Walsh on Deseret News. But the title of it is BYU Police Report Details What Happened During BYU-Duke Volleyball Match.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay. And it goes through and talks about this, according to second police report obtained to the Deseret News. The officer said the man did not use any negative language toward the Duke players during the fourth set. So he wasn't around in the second set because that's when the first complaint was made. They set the police officer over there. Mm-hmm. Larson also said he didn't hear any racist language used by any fan during that set when Duke player Rachel Richardson said the racist slurs intensified. So here's let's see, who is this that's saying this? Okay,
could I jump in and add some more stuff?
Yeah, go ahead.
So BYU put out a press release that they didn't post onto Twitter. So kind of a under the radar press release, a second one after their original one. Mm-hmm. And they said, after the second set, when she complained, we posted a police officer and sent 4 people into the crowd to kind of look around and try and hear stuff. Nobody heard anything.
No one heard anything.
And then we went and asked everybody after the game was over and reviewed the footage. And then the police report that had 2 police reports that have come out now that the Tribune covered last night and then Deseret News covered this afternoon corroborate all of that. And there are many people that were scanning the second half of the game when apparently this stuff intensified, were alert to it, were looking for it, and testified in the reports that they couldn't find anything or hear anything.
Yeah. So Richardson also did an interview. This is with BYU alum Holly Rowe here. That says that she heard someone yell a racial slur. She says they heckled throughout the entire game. Okay, that does not show up by video, and that does not show up by any sources that were there looking for this specifically. She says that's just a part of sports. She says the next time I went back to serve, I heard it extremely clear again. Yeah, this is very, very fishy. Her words do not add up at all. And so what is BYU supposed to do, right? What do you do? I mean, even if by now 5 days later this whole story is unraveling, what do you do? You've already gone out. Tom Holmoe's already gone out on Saturday night and kind of conceded this guilt, or I don't know if I want to go that far, but it's. What do you do at this point? Where are you going to go with it? You're not going to go after the girl, right? We're not going to go after a student athlete. Mm-hmm. So what do you do at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I wish they would have done a lot of things differently to begin with. But at this point, we were actually sent more messages today from people in the athletic department that they apparently feel pretty good about the position that they're in because they banned the person Duke told us to ban. So in terms of PR stuff, they feel comfortable with where they are right now, even though all of these revelations are coming out. And I think it just goes to show, because people often say, oh, BYU is super conservative. You have all the power at BYU. What in the world are you guys complaining about? Stop being such babies. Deal with having other ideas at BYU. But then when you look at an actual case study, BYU is more than happy when they have to pick a side of who we're going to believe more. They go with the single Black female who has changed her story a bit as time goes on, instead of saying, we can't corroborate anything, but we'd like to believe that the entire student section isn't racist. They would rather go on that one story and throw the whole student section at the game, and kind of by extension, all of BYU and the church under the bus.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's the wrong response. It's just, I like the words that Tom Homo said, but you can't do that without qualifying it. Mm-hmm. He's saying we're looking for truth and we're going to find the truth. Here is the police officer. He goes on and says, talking about the man that gets banned here, he says he seemed to be more interested in talking to me than cheering for BYU. It was evident based on the individual's comments, stuttered speech, and mannerisms that he has special needs. Based on my training and experience in crisis intervention training, he may have Asperger's syndrome or could have autism. The individual was articulate but socially awkward. The individual kept scrolling through his phone and didn't seem to be involved in the game. So that information seems to me like that information would have been available to Tom Homo within 24 hours afterward.
It was because looking at the person we call Connor in our article, in that person's statement, they didn't state a lot of details about this man, but I knew from the personal conversations sent to us that they said it was a young man in a yellow shirt who appeared to be mentally ill. We only put the mentally challenged or slow in our article because that was her statement, but we knew he had a yellow shirt. And when you go at the video, in fact, the picture for our article shows this girl serving and shows a young man in a yellow shirt standing next to a police officer behind her in the crowd. We put that in there. And now that it's out there in Deseret News, I can talk about this. So they knew like his identification. They had looked for him in the video. They couldn't find him doing what they had said. And now apparently he was talking to the police officer, which I didn't know at the time, and seemed perfectly fine. So I think going back to your previous question about what BYU should do is probably don't put his name out there, because he'll probably get attacked if you do.
Yeah, they shouldn't put his name out there. I don't want to
apologize. Apologize to him and probably give him his rights back, for lack of a better term. Say he's welcome to come back to events because he was mentally challenged. He didn't really do anything wrong. And we have confirmed he wasn't. And you could even add on to the end, we're still looking for the awful person who yelled these things if you want to, I guess. But like, at least do that and apologize to this poor young man who was there.
So all of this national news that, where everybody jumps on it. This is the Me Too thing. This is all of the national news going on to ESPN with Stephen A. Smith's ridiculous rants. LeBron James going on to Twitter and talking about this, and then removing his tweet later on as he sees this thing.
Oh, really?
CNN and everywhere else that this starts showing up nationally, giving BYU this black eye, is all possibly likely a someone who has Asperger's or autism, who may or may not have ever even said anything that was racial slur. Yeah. And yet our response, again, because of the media and the wall there, I still think is very poorly handled, but it is to throw everybody under the bus and to appease those that would support additional DEI training, to appease those that are looking at BYU as a system of systemic racism. You go through and see these social media posts by these people, and they smell blood in the water. Again, they are all over this and more than willing to assign racism to everybody involved at BYU. And it's a nothing burger. It's absolutely a nothing burger here, it looks like. And very sad to me, very sad. Well, anything else you wanted to add?
I did want to comment a little bit on the DEI training because if you look at Rachel's statement, this athlete statement, she says, we were very fortunate to have this paid DEI training called The Long Talk. Yes. And if you go to the Twitter page of this organization, I believe it is, you can see that they did this just a little before coming to BYU. And you can see the whole team, they're standing there in front of a
I think it's just
PowerPoint.
2 or 3 days before is what I think it was.
But there's a big PowerPoint behind them that says racism. And I think it was like a 2-day thing that they go to. The BYU volleyball team, by the way, did this same training last year.
Wonderful.
As well. Yeah. Although
from the same organization?
Yeah. The same Long Talk thing. Although apparently all that training stopped after the Elder Holland talk a year ago. So it's a good thing there.
That is good.
According to some angry people, that's what they said. All that training stopped. But
okay,
going back to this story, so I'm kind of like an alternate history in my mind. I'm wondering if this would have ever happened if they hadn't just been told racism, 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 racism. And this volleyball game was a little unique as well because this was during a new student orientation for the freshmen. So all the freshmen were coming to campus, they were getting, here's the different classes, here's the different resources. Then they had their nighttime activities. And one of them was, you can go to the volleyball game for free. You can just go there and be one of those things. So you had a lot of freshmen there, a record-sized crowd because it's a free event when you're just starting into college, let's go and cheer for the Cougars at this game. And so I can just kind of imagine being Rachel going to this training of white people generally equals racist. You have to be aware of it. You have to stand up for it. Speak your truth, all this stuff that they teach them, these things. Basically goes right from that training to get on the plane to go to BYU, that they call a PWI, a predominantly white institution, and walk into this crowd full of all of these excited white freshmen and just be on alert. Like, there are very excited white people here who want me to lose. That must mean it's racist. And so I kind of actually think she might sincerely believe that she heard something because she'd kind of been trained that, hey, this is what happens in this situation. If you're in a big crowd of white people that are on the opposing team, you're most likely going to be called something. Yeah. And then I could see her brain just making whatever word it was into a racial slur and deciding that that's what happened. I don't know if you think that might be a plausible explanation, but
it's possible. I mean, it's possible. The bottom line is that someone or many people are lying in this, regardless of how you want to look at this. Even if there was a racial slur that was thrown out there once or twice or something, there someone is lying about the narrative here. And about someone yelling from the student section, racial slurs and heckling for 2 hours, and nobody doing anything. That's a lie. It's an absolute lie. And it's not hard to think that from the beginning if you really stop and just think about it and put yourself in those shoes. That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. I say shame on those who get on the bandwagon of systemic racism and Kendi's anti-racism and try and find guilt where there is no guilt. I would ask them to apologize. Those who have put those posts out on social media, I just don't think it's going to happen. And honestly, I would ask Tom Homo and others. Again, I love Tom Homo, but there should be a clarifying statement that comes out from them that while not trying to throw Miss Richardson under the bus, it still comes out and says, look, we couldn't find anything. We could not find anything other than a mentally challenged man that may have been a little bit of a bother to people. But I don't think we're going to see it. I think they're too afraid. Honestly, I think they're too afraid to do it, and that's concerning. That's very concerning to me. That's a cultural problem that we all have, but I think especially at BYU and within the church that we don't want conflict. We love conflict avoidance. So it's a problem.
Yeah.
Well, Luke, thank you to you and Tommy Stevenson for putting this together. You can find their information at give me your two places online for them to look for your blogs.
Yeah, so what we started off as was Instagram, so that's at BYU Conservatives on Instagram, and then the website is BYUCougarChronicle.org, and that's where the article is right now.
All right. Well, keep up the good work, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon.
Yep, appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Luke.
Thanks, Greg.